Greetings. This is the one you've known as Jesus the Christ. I want to focus on a particular question today, which will help you discover what really matters to you. The question is, what are you giving your loyalty to? This may not be something you often think about, which is what makes it a good question. If you don't examine this, you're likely to fall into old habits and patterns of making choices that don't serve you. Loyalty, as I'm using this, is attention plus energy and time. What you are loyal to is what you give your attention, energy, and time to. It may be helpful to take stock of what you're loyal to on most days. What you're loyal to will determine your experience of life and also what you're creating in life, for your good or to your detriment. The choices you make each day matter. They determine your experience of any moment, and they shape your life. They lay the foundation for what you'll experience going forward. Let me give you an example. If you exercise every day, that becomes part of your experience of that day, and it supports the creation of a healthy and strong body going forward. If you don't choose to exercise regularly, that leaves time for other things which define your day and to some extent your future. For instance, maybe instead of exercising you read books. Then those books will be your experience and affect your life going forward. How you spend your time matters. Every choice has consequences. My point is that you create your current and future experience with every choice you make. In essence, the only difference between you and another person are the choices you make each day, including what you choose to believe and how you relate to the voice in your head. These are some of the most important choices. What you choose to believe surely determines your current and future experience. Notice that I said your beliefs determine your experience of the present and your future experiences. That's primarily what beliefs do. They determine your experience of reality, whether you're happy or not, because they determine the lens through which you view life. This in turn determines and possibly limits what kind of opportunities life brings you, and whether or not you take advantage of them. This is why it is said that your beliefs create reality. However, it would be more accurate to say that your beliefs create your experience of reality, your inner experience, and that affects the choices you make that help shape outer reality. I say help shape reality because there is another hand at work shaping reality, and that is the hand of grace, thy will. What you believe is really important, and yet many people are not that aware of what they believe or aren't consciously making choices around that. Most people accept certain beliefs without questioning them, even though beliefs are so important. It's as if people don't believe that beliefs are important, but it's easy enough to see how very important they are. Many people are sleepwalking through life. They believe things without questioning them, and they make choices without thinking. They're operating on automatic, which means they're letting their default, their programming, choose for them. The problem with this is the programming is faulty. Letting the default choose for you is not freedom. So many live as if they're imprisoned by their conditioning, except they don't realize they're imprisoned. They live as if they have no choice to behave differently than their programming. Their conditioning is determining their experience of life and what they're creating in life, and they don't even realize it. They're free to choose differently, but they aren't exercising that freedom. This is where loyalty comes in. What are you being loyal to? In other words, what are you giving your attention, energy, and time to? What are you falling in lockstep with? What are you following? Loyalty is often about loyalty to a leader or to a principle. What leader are you following? What principles, values, or beliefs are you following? Whether you're aware of it or not, you're following something. So it's important to be conscious of what that is. Without that awareness, you are at the mercy of your conditioning, and you've forfeited your power to choose. Some people don't want to do the work of consciously choosing. It takes awareness and will to choose something other than the default. The default is the path of least resistance, and therefore the easiest choice. However, following the default is rarely the best choice. Take that in. Following the default is rarely the best choice. What a predicament! The human condition is such that the default and the easiest thing to do is not the best choice. No wonder people lead such unhappy lives. They're making poor choices. They're being loyal to a false master, a poor master. The reason this master is such a poor one is that this master, your programming, lacks wisdom in the same way that a computer lacks wisdom. Like a computer, you're programmed with information. But unlike a computer, much of your programming is not true, partly because your programming is outdated, and partly because you've been programmed by other human beings who lack wisdom or basic knowledge. A computer that's been programmed with false information isn't much use. And if you don't know that computer has been programmed with false information, that computer is worse than useless. It's dangerous. It can cause damage, suffering. Your faulty programming is the cause of your suffering. Or rather, believing your faulty programming is the cause of your suffering. Wisdom resides in the heart, not the head. This is counterintuitive because it seems like your ability to think is your saving grace. You rely on it. It sets you apart from other creatures and has allowed you to manipulate your environment to your advantage. Your ability to think and reason is extremely useful. However, your intellect is just a tool, just as your body is a tool. The important question is, who or what is using this tool? What is using your intelligence, your rational mind, the ego, or something wiser? Your rational mind, your ability to think and reason, is a God-given gift. It's a reflection of the greater intelligence that created you. This ability to reason is not part of your programmed mind, however. Your conditioning and other programming, including the ego, belong to a more primitive aspect of the mind that is not rational, objective, or wise. This primitive part of your brain is often in conflict with the rational part of your brain. I'm sure this is quite apparent to you. So you could say that there are three aspects to your intelligence: the conditioned or programmed mind, the rational or reasoning mind, and wisdom or intuitive knowing. The conditioned or programmed mind is the domain of the ego, and the ego is part of that programming. The ego is the programmed sense of being separate and apart from all that is. The ego is the faulty software you've been given, and the ego's voice is the voice in your head. It is largely fear-based, and the desires it generates and the actions that come from those desires are designed to assuage the ego's fears. The rational mind is the hardware, the functional computer. The rational mind can be used by the ego to get the ego's desires met, or the rational mind can be used by the divine to accomplish the divine's intentions and plan. The rational mind is neutral. As I said, it's a tool to be used by the ego or the divine. Wisdom or intuitive knowing comes primarily from beyond the brain. It is the voice of the divine, which attempts to guide each person's life, but is overruled at times by the predominance of the voice in the head. To return to our question, what are you giving your loyalty to? As always, the issue is who is controlling the body-mind. Is the ego at the helm, or the divine self? The ego is the master of most people's lives, but not entirely. The divine self has its say, often without any conscious awareness on the person's part. The divine self manages to steer most people's lives in the general direction it intends, in spite of their allegiance to the voice in their head. The difference is that someone who's following their intuition moves more effortlessly in the soul's direction and experiences less suffering overall than someone who's following the voice in their head. Although the ego doesn't prevent most people from fulfilling their soul's plans, it causes a lot of missteps and unnecessary suffering along the way, even in the midst of plenty and great grace. To be free and happy, you have to become aware of where your directives are coming from, the voice in your head or divine wisdom. To the degree that your loyalty is to the voice in your head, you will make poor choices and suffer. And to the degree that your loyalty is to your divine wisdom, you will be happy and not suffer. This is a nice, neat formula. Follow your inner wisdom. But the problem is that to do that, you have to go against your default. And many don't know what that means to give their loyalty to their inner wisdom. How do you live this way? It seems mysterious and impossibly vague, but it isn't. Each of you already follows your inner wisdom. Every time you do or say something you feel good about, you're following your inner wisdom. That happens a lot, especially for those of you on the spiritual path who are making an effort to be more conscious of your choices. For many of you, making such choices is already natural and automatic. More and more, you are consciously choosing what to believe and how to behave. You notice your judgments and negative thoughts, choose not to act on them, and make another choice. When you do this, you're being loyal to the truth, to the divine within. The divine within you is your own natural goodness. When you're loyal to goodness, you feel good. Choosing goodness could even be considered a formula for how to behave. Oh, wait, isn't that what you've been taught? Be good. Yes, it is. Because the knowledge that goodness is good and goodness is the path is encoded in you more deeply than any other programming you have. The still, small voice of goodness is always whispering in your ear, if you are willing to listen. Be loyal to that, and you will be truly happy and at peace. I wish you all the peace and happiness of your divine nature. I am with you always.